Welcome to the Gyrl Podcast. I'm Kyra Mitchell-Lewis, and thank you all for joining. Hope you all are having a wonderful week. I hope you are having a great Thursday as well. So with that being said, it is Thursday, which means there's a new episode of the podcast here for you today. So today's episode, I'm really excited about because I am going to be talking with Kendra Swalls, who is a former teacher turned photographer and business coach. And she's also the host of the Girls Mean Business podcast. Kendra and I are going to talk about her journey and her transition from her teaching career to owning her own business. And she has a really interesting story. As you will hear later when we talk, we'll talk about the reverse engineering of her business. So she's basically, started as an educator and she was a photographer on the side. She decided to transition to her photography business, which ultimately led to her becoming a marketing coach, business coach for others, because they saw that she was able to successfully transition from her career in teaching to being a full-time photographer. So really, really cool story. And I feel like that resonates with so many people as to I like what I'm doing. I enjoy my job. I like my career, but maybe you need to transition because you want more flexibility in your day-to-day. You want more time with your family. You want more time, more freedom. So she's going to join me and we're going to talk about how she navigated from her 9-to-5 business to full-time business owner. So stay tuned. I'll be right back. Welcome back to the Gyrl Podcast. I'm Kyra. Thank you all for joining. I'm so excited to welcome Kendra into the show. So welcome, Kendra, to the Gyrl Podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
Awesome. Well, let's get started with you telling those listening and watching out there a little bit about who you are and what you do.
Absolutely. So as I said, my name is Kendra. I am a former elementary school teacher turned photographer and now marketing coach. So I have my photography business. I was running that full time. I started getting a lot of people kind of asking me questions about, how were you able to leave your job? How were you able to grow your business? What were you doing? Teach me what you were doing. And the former teacher in me was like, yeah, let me just give you all this information. And then I was like, wait a minute, I could be doing something with this. So I sort of reverse engineered my business. I started my podcast first, had no clue what I was doing. It was literally just like a set of headphones and I recorded my first episode on my iPhone, figured out how to get out into the world, started doing that. And then I was like, oh, people actually want to pay me to coach them. And so that led me into doing the coaching. So it's all just kind of come very organically.
Yes.
But now I primarily focus on kind of photographers and creatives because they tend to be the ones who are I just want to create this beautiful thing and I want to make this art or whatever. And then they're like, oh, wait, I actually need to do the business of it. So I help them learn how to, simplify and make it as easy as possible, but still get really good results.
Okay. I absolutely love so many things you just said because first of all, I got chills because it was really purpose, right? It was purpose for you because you were just simply doing something that you loved.
Yeah.
And being able to, walk away and to start your, full-time being a photographer, but then also just having other people see what you were doing. And I love how, like you said, you kind of reversed your way into your own business, helping other people. So I just think that's pretty awesome.
Thank you.
Well, let's first talk about, so you were a teacher and why did you want to leave your career as a teacher?
So teaching, it was what I've always wanted to do. Like as a kid, like that was just kind of the plan. Like I didn't have a backup plan. It was like, I'm going to be a teacher. And I got into it and it was great. I loved teaching. I loved aspects of teaching. I don't think anyone 100% loves their job all the time. There's always parts of it that are frustrating. But with education, like and especially in public education, you have so little control of the things that you are being held responsible for. And it just got to the point where I was like, this is not where I see myself for the next 30 some odd years, but I didn't really know what the rest of it looked like. So I actually, I guess it was about 5 or 6 years into teaching. I was like, you know what, maybe I need to go back and get my master's degree. Maybe it's just the classroom. Maybe I need to move out of the classroom and do something like, I knew I didn't want to go into administration, but I was like, maybe counseling or library science or something. So I ended up getting my master's degree in curriculum and instruction. I was like, oh, this would be fun. Like I could be one of those people who goes and teaches other teachers how to do, how to work with their students, how to do different things. I loved going to conferences and watching people up on stage. I was like, I could do that. So I got my master's degree, ended up getting what some would consider in the education world, like the dream job, which is I was working for a really small school district. I was their math coordinator. So I was working with kindergarten through 6th grade teachers, helping them implement their math curriculum. I would pull small groups of students here and there. But I primarily was there to support the teachers and help them, understand the curriculum. So I didn't have the parents to deal with. I didn't have the teacher. Right. I mean, like the students all the time. I could kind of create my own schedule, but I still got to, enjoy the benefits of being on a campus. And I loved the people I worked with. I loved my principal. However, in this time, I'd also had my oldest daughter, and then I was pregnant with my youngest daughter. Okay. And I was like, it is wearing me out. And I'm giving all of my time and energy to other people and other people's kids all day long. And then I come home and I have no energy to give to my own children. And I was like, this seems backwards. This just doesn't seem to be adding up. Right. So I was like, and my oldest one was getting ready to go into kindergarten. And I was like, I feel like I lost all of this time with her because she was in daycare all the time. And we were always like, I would be so tired. I would go pick her up and we'd go home and we'd rush through the evening things to get her into bed. So I could like sit down for a minute and like work on the next day's plans or just relax. And I was like, this is not enjoying life. This is just kind of like getting by in life. And so I remember it was my youngest one had just turned 1. And I was like, my photography business was doing pretty well, but I got my contract for the next year. And I was like, I don't think I can sign this. Like, I genuinely don't think I can sign this. And my husband and I had talked about it for a long time, and he kind of agreed to like, let me have a year. And I was like, I'm just going to go for it. So I took it to my principal. I cried the whole way. She was amazing. She was like, you always have a job with me, no matter where I am, if you ever want to come back to teaching. And, I went home and told my husband, I was like, by the way, he was like, how was your day? I was like, well, let me tell you.
That thing we talked about?
Yeah.
Well, I did it.
Yeah. I kind of put those wheels into motion. And I haven't looked back since. So it's genuinely, it's been one of the best decisions that I made.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah. I appreciate that story. It's so great to hear that. And I appreciate that you did enjoy what you were doing and you loved the work, but you had to make a decision for yourself and your family because ultimately like life is meant to be lived. And if you were coming home every night and barely able to give anything to your own children, and so Matt, look, I'm just speculating here, but you can't give anything to your own kids, and then you've got a husband you need to spend time with. I'm pretty sure by the time you had some time with the kids, you're probably like, oh, I don't have any more. I'm out. Yeah. Juice is gone.
Yeah. I found that I was being like short-tempered and like everything frustrated me. And I was like, this isn't how I want like the few hours I see her every afternoon to be. Right. It's just not.
Yeah. And so, okay. So you put those wheels in motion and you say, I'm going to go full steam into my business. So let's talk about that transition from you having, a more secure, job, and then going into your own, being a business owner?
Yeah, it was scary. And I did not do it the way that people are like, tell you to do it. You know, a lot of people that the experts will say like, oh, have this much saved up and make sure you're, you know, you have this much business and blah, blah. No, I am the type that I'm like, I just jump and see where life takes us, which is the complete opposite of what my husband does. But he has learned to, it's a good balance. Yes.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was like, okay, I know that my business is up to this certain point, and I need to see like, if I give it my all, you know, 24/7 kind of, not 24/7, but you know what I mean? Like if I'm able to invest the time that I wasn't able to, yes, those hours into my business, what could it be? And so I knew that I had, the way our payments were set up for teaching is I was going to get paid through August of that year. So when I left at the end of May, when school was out, I knew I had those next 3 months to kind of, I had that income in, but I also wasn't working school hours. So I was like, let me see if I can like really go all in. And within a few months, I was making the same or more of what I was making teaching, because I was able to really kind of go like, I can give this 100% instead of having to give it like, you know, 40% compared to the 60 I was giving to my work every day. And it was a little bit scary, but I also think for me, taking that safety net away was what I needed. I think if I'd always been like, oh, but I always have this, you know, this income to back it up, I never would have given my business the attention it really needed to get off the ground and running, because I was always like, oh, it'll be fine. Like, this is just like extra money. But taking that safety net away and being like, oh gosh, at the end of August, like this is all I'm going to have. It really motivated me to like get things in place. And it hasn't, I mean, ever since it's been like, no, I have to make X amount of dollars a month in order to contribute to our household or to cover the expenses of my business. And it keeps me from, you know, kind of like slacking off or being like, oh, I don't feel like doing that today. I'm like, no, I need to get that done today because I need to make money.
Right.
So for me, that worked. Now, I'm not saying everyone should do that. Just don't just like walk in and quit your job without a plan. But for me, that was what was like the motivator to get things going.
Yeah. Every person's journey is different, but I do think one thing that all entrepreneurs have in common is the fact that we do often have the feeling of, wow, what could this business be if I could spend, you know, 8 hours a day fully on this business and not 9 hours on, you know, in a corporate job or work, and then the few hours in the evening that you can dedicate to growing your dream.
Yep. Yeah.
So, yeah. Well, let's see. When you stepped away and you had all this time on, you know, to start dedicating to your business, did you ever feel like, did you struggle with any like imposter syndrome? If you did, how did you overcome that?
Yeah. Oh boy. Yes, I did. So for me, there were a lot of things happening that I did not expect whenever I left. First of all, I had a 1-year-old at home with me. So that was tough. You know, I had these visions of like, oh, when I'm able to work from home, it's going to be this, I'm going to have so many hours in the day. It's going to be amazing. It's crazy how much faster they go by. But yeah, like I was like, oh, I'm going to be able to like sit and work while she plays or watches a show or colors or does whatever. And that is not reality. Reality was like, I still needed to have some kind of structure in my day in order to actually like get things done. And it took a while for me to like get that in place. What I struggled with more so than the imposter syndrome was this sort of identity shift, because I had been a teacher for, at this point, 14 years of my life, including like, and then you add in like college, being a, you know, education major. It had been a part of my life for so long. And there was something about tying myself to that identity of like, when someone would ask, you know, oh, what do you do? My first response would be like, I used to be a teacher, but now I run my own photography business. And I didn't even realize I was doing that. My husband pointed out to me one time, we were meeting some of his extended family at an event. And I said it, and he was like, why do you do that? And I was like, do what? He's like, you start with, well, I used to be a teacher. He's like, but you're not teaching anymore. Like, what does that matter? He's like, I don't go in and say, well, I used to work at a movie theater, you know, like, he's like, I'm not over there like prefacing with my high school job or, you know, and I'm like,
right.
I was like, there's something about saying like, you're a teacher, or, you know, I have some friends that used to be nurses and they were like, yeah, same thing. Like there's something tied to this identity of you were this thing. And it felt kind of, I don't know if noble is the right, but it felt like it was a career that felt like it had some weight to it. And so to take that away, on top of that, a lot of my former teachers that I worked with, they were all like congratulating me, like, oh, I'm so excited you get to just be home with your baby and be mom. And I'm like, but that's not what I'm doing. Like, so frustrating.
Yeah.
And so I really struggled with the identity crisis of, well, who am I now if I take this title away?
Right.
And then the idea of like the imposter syndrome, that didn't affect me too much until later on, because at this point in my business, I was just kind of like, no, this is what I'm doing. I need to get this done in order to make it successful. But yeah, the identity shift was the really big, like scary part of it. It was hard. Yeah. And there's still days where I'm just like, someone told me the other day, so I volunteer at my kids' school a lot. I'm friends with a lot of their teachers. We live in a really small town, so we kind of know everybody. And one of the teachers I'm really close with, and she was kind of complaining about her job and the end of the year and the chaos. And I was talking to somebody and they're like, I think it's called like survivor guilt. And they were like, this sounds really weird, but you got out of this really difficult profession. And now you are wanting so badly to help the people that are still in it, but like, you can't, you know, there's nothing you can do other than like taking over their job for them.
Yeah.
And so it's, you know, it's still, you know, 7 years later, it's still like, wait a minute.
Yeah. Because you loved what you did.
Yeah.
And you made a decision. You didn't leave it because you didn't like enjoy it and it wasn't important to you.
Right.
But it's like, for me here, just hearing your story, I like just thought in my head, like, you know, I could see you introducing yourself as like, you know, obviously I'm a photographer, I'm a marketing coach, and I'm a lifelong educator.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because that's essentially what you have continued to do, but just in a different forum, is continue to educate people and help them grow. So, so you still carry a very noble title.
Well, thank you.
Still a very noble title, because, you know, anyone who, you know, provides a service or really wants to help other people realize their full potential, like those people are important in the world. Just as much as just a teacher that's teaching your child or children, you're teaching adults and helping them.
Yeah.
So I think that's
and that's
cool.
how I look at it now sometimes too, is I'm like, oh, now instead of helping these kids with what they're struggling with, I get to help their parents, you know, their moms, have more time with them. That's the ultimate goal, is for them to be able to be home more and working in their own business. And so it is a shift. It's just, you know, it's a little bit of a mindset shift for sure.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, like you said, it's when you've done something for so long, I mean, it's like, it's ingrained in who you are as a person.
Yeah.
What other struggles or, you know, things did you deal with as you became you know, full-time business owner that you can share with us?
Yeah, I think, you know, I kind of touched on the biggest one, which was the time and like figuring out a schedule and a routine, because I went from like this, when I was teaching, I had a classroom or an office space. I was like, this is my desk. This is where everything lives. I was so used to like a paper planner where everything was mapped out. Like if it did not go to my planner, it did not happen. Everything, you know, my day for the most part, looked the same every day. And then I left that for what I thought I wanted, which was this time freedom of like, I want my day to look like however I want it to look every single day. And it can be different every single day. And that's totally fine. And I can go and I can have lunch anytime I want. And I can like run to Target if I need to in the middle of the day. And that freedom was almost too much freedom, because I realized I needed some kind of structure, because my time management skills were lacking when it came time to like actually make things happen. I needed what I'd had, which was like, this is a dedicated space or time. And I had to learn too, that like the things I had done in my day-to-day job prior weren't going to work in my day-to-day life now. Like the idea of that paper planner, like at work, when I was teaching, I had it open on my desk and I was at my desk or by my desk a lot of the day. So I could easily look over. Whereas when I was home with a 1-year-old, I didn't have anything near me other than maybe a bottle of water consistently. So that paper planner had to go because things were getting lost in the shuffle and I was forgetting about things. And I was, sending emails at 10 o'clock at night, which is not ideal when you're trying to like look professional. I don't want them thinking they can email me at 10 o'clock at night. So I shouldn't be sending emails at 10 o'clock at night. And so I really had to, and it probably took me a good 8 months of doing it that way. Cause I was just like, no, I just want to enjoy and I want it to look like this and, be like this and feel like this. And then I finally was like, okay, now it's time to like really sit down, figure out what this looks like and how can I do both? How can I be mom? And then how can I also run this business without neglecting one or the other? And I always say like, there's all this conversation around balance. Like, how do you balance it all? How do you balance work and home and work and kids, all the things? And I loved, I had a conversation on my podcast one time with a girl and we kind of came up with this new idea of like, it's not about balance because the idea of balance is like the scales are even, you think about like what is the lady who's holding the scales of the justice or whatever, and they're balanced. When in reality, it's about harmony. And when you think about harmony, you think about like an orchestra and all these instruments working together to make this beautiful sound. And some of them are going to play louder and some of them are going to play softer. They're not all like screaming at you the whole time, depending on the song. And I was like, oh, that visual for me really helped me go, okay, there are going to be some days where my kids take precedence. Like yesterday was field day at their school. And so I was gone the whole day to help them with field day. And that was fine because I made sure that the other days before that in the week, I was focusing on work,
Right.
It's about like letting yourself know that like, there's going to be times when your family life takes precedence and then your work life takes precedence. And it's okay for them to not be even all the time. So that was another lesson I really had to learn in order to like be productive and not feel like I was constantly beating myself up for not doing something or not being there for something,
Yeah. I think that's a great way of looking at it. Because I think too, like I always say with balance, like, I don't think you're ever, like you said, think about the scales and it's never going to be what you would envision or what we think we want it to be, but you just want to be able to sort of exist in what feels right, for you. Exactly. And I think you said another important thing that got me thinking, because I do this a lot too. So pro tip from Kendra, everyone, don't send emails, if you're trying to manage a business. And of course, if you have a job that you're working during the day, but trying to carve out times where you can send emails at a normal hour, because I tend to do that a lot. Like sending emails like at night, sending emails on the weekends, because that's when I have time to dedicate to Glow Up Girl. But it is something to think about because you don't want to set that precedent that, it's cool if you send me emails at night too. And I'm going to, but I don't think I'm going to answer them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, because I was having my problem was I would have photography clients who, and my goal was I wanted them to feel like that we were friends and I wanted them to feel like that, we were connecting. But they would text me at 9 or 10 o'clock at night, or even at 7 o'clock at night when it was family time and dinner time. And I would feel like I needed to respond right away. And I'm like, wait a minute, if I respond, and I did for a while because I was like, oh, I have to be, if I don't respond, they'll go find someone else. It's all about who can get there first. If I had someone inquire through my email, I was like, I have to respond.
Yeah.
Sorry. And finally I was like, wait a minute, why am I getting so frustrated when all of these people are messaging me late at night when I'm the one responding to them? So it's me giving them permission to say oh yeah, if you message me at 8 o'clock, I'm going to respond to you. And so I started putting a little disclaimer kind of on my contact page on my website that said, all emails will be responded to from Monday through Friday from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. If you send a message after those hours, you'll get a response within the next 24 or the next day or something. And just setting up that
managing
expectation. Yes, it made a huge difference. And then I didn't feel so bad because I was like, well, they know, they've seen it and it's in my emails sometimes too. And I was like, so it's it's on them. Like I get it. They may only have a certain time of day that they can reach
Mm-hmm.
out, but they need to understand that I'm not going to be available at those times all the time.
Right. Yeah. I think that definitely makes sense. So why don't you tell us about the podcast, Girls Mean Business?
Yeah. So you cut out for a second there. The podcast is what I think you were asking about, right? Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. So the podcast, like I said, it kind of just came about as me wanting to share my information that I had learned throughout growing my photography business. And it is kind of generally geared towards just women in general, helping you to launch and grow your business. And it goes from everything from like quick little marketing tips to, really powerful interviews. We talk about, mom life. We talk about business. We talk about marketing. We talk about social media. We kind of cover the whole gamut, mindset a lot too, around because if your mindset's not in the right place, nothing else is going to fall into place. So yeah, it's been 4 years actually as of this month, which is crazy. It's one of those things. Thank you. It is one of those things where like I started it having no idea the impact it would have on my business. And I actually just recorded an episode recently about consistency and how the podcast has been the one thing I have been consistent at for the longest period of time in my business. So it's like every Wednesday for 4 years, I've had an episode go out. I have not missed a single week. And I being like a kind of a fly by the seat of my pants, like I'm somewhat ADHD, maybe. I know I'm an Enneagram 7, so I am all over the place. I'm like, ooh, let's try this and let's try that. Okay. So you get it. For me to have that be that consistent, I was like, oh man, I can actually do this. But it's been awesome. And I've been able to meet some really incredible people from doing it.
Yes. Yes. No, first of all, congratulations. Because I think I feel like you when I started this podcast. So like I'm in season 4 now, and I didn't plan to start one. It's just when I started my business, it was like right at the beginning. When I started Gyrl, it was right at the beginning of like the pandemic. So I had to find a different route to like connect to women and sort of share this information and stories. And so I was like, oh, well, maybe I'll do, a podcast. And so then I started doing it. And like you said, it's like, I consistently, like when I first started, I was launching episodes on Tuesday, and then I moved to Thursday, but I've consistently, produced new episodes on Thursdays, for the last 4 years. And like, that's pretty, pretty awesome. So
congratulate yourself on that. Cause I think we need to celebrate those little wins more often. Yes. That's pretty awesome.
Well, I do want to pick your brain on one thing, because when you said social media, definitely just interested in your opinion on this, because I know we have a lot of people, entrepreneurs who are listening. And of course, when you hear social, everybody's like, oh, you got to make more videos. You got to go live. You got to talk to the people. What's your take on that?
So I am of the mindset that I feel like social media is not the end all be all. So I think a lot of people confuse running a business with having a social media account. They think that posting to social media is their business. And that's not the case. Posting to social media, putting content out in whatever format you do it, it is a means of exposure, but it is not. And I mean, the rare influencer who that is their full business, I think that's also really scary. I think anytime you build something on unstable ground, which is social media, like we don't own it, we don't have control over 90% of it. It's very, it's a great tool to have in your toolbox. Right. But I think that the emphasis we've put on social media has gotten to this point where we're like, oh my gosh, you have to be doing all of these things.
Yes.
And I just don't think that all the things is the answer. I think you need to focus on like, what is it that's actually driving your business forward? So I had this conversation with one of my coaching clients the other day, and I was like trying to get her to start going all in on like email marketing. I was like, let's give this a try. Like we've kind of been doing other things. And I said, real quick, I don't know why I haven't really asked you this question to this point. I said, where do you see besides like word of mouth referrals, where do you see people coming to you from as clients? And she was like, oh, well, I have this private Facebook group and a lot of them come from that. And I was like, okay, let's hit pause for a second. Like, why are we focusing on all of these other avenues? Like, why are you trying to add in all these other things when the thing that's actually bringing you clients needs more attention, which is this Facebook group? Mm-hmm. And that's what I see a lot of people doing with social media. They're like, well, I need to be on TikTok and I need to be on Instagram and I need to be on Lemonade or whatever, YouTube and Pinterest and all the things. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, but if it's not actually bringing you clients and you're spending all of this time creating content and all of this time doing all the things and chasing all the shiny things, then maybe let's take that time and put it towards other things. Mm-hmm. And so what I've started doing with my social media is I'm turning it into mostly like a resource library of sorts. Mm-hmm. So I am building up a content of about 60 different posts on Instagram, because that's my primary platform is Instagram. Mm-hmm. And once I have those 60 core piece of like content posts, I'm just going to repurpose them over and over and over again, because most of and I will show up on stories and things like that and like share the behind the scenes. But I'm like, I'm not going to dedicate all of this time and energy to creating new stuff all the time. Yeah. When most of my clients, aren't necessarily looking for that. That's not where I'm getting my clients from. So I do think it's an important piece, and it's up to this point, it's a free tool that we have available for us to use, which is amazing. But I also think there needs to be that separation of putting content on social media is not what your business is. It is just an outlet of your business.
Exactly. No, I appreciate that, because I definitely agree. I agree with you. And I think a lot of times just, people just feel like you said, like, I've got to be here because that's where everybody else is. And I had someone say to me recently about getting, clients for like the career coaching that I do. And it's like, well, I mean, a lot more than some of these people on TikTok who have tons of views and tons of, and you should definitely consider it. And I was like, yeah, I have considered it and I'm not interested. I was like, I don't want to do it. Like, I don't want to do it. I don't want to show up there. What I do want to do, I want to show up to TikTok so I can laugh. So I can see all the creative people who are making excellent and great content, and I want to celebrate and laugh and applaud them. But I don't want that pressure on me, because it's just not sustainable for me. Mm-hmm. And I'm not going to do something like halfway. I'm going to want to do it to the best of my ability. So then therefore it's going to add more work to my plate, because I'm going to feel like I've got to create good content. And I'm like, ultimately, I am not an influencer. Not in that sense that I need to be making fancy videos and and high quality.
It's so hard. Yeah.
Yes. I was like,
because we see all these other people doing it, and it feels like you're like, oh, but they're doing it. Do I need? And like, that's what, like I said, like, I feel like sometimes we just put blinders on and be like, no, we need to like stop worrying about what everybody else is doing.
Exactly.
And just focus on what's moving your business forward.
Exactly. Yeah. I'm like, no, I don't need to do that. And I'm not going to. So I think that's really important. And also too, because, even with social media, I mean, now it's just, there's so much, it's so, convoluted with so many things. And like, I think I was just thinking to myself this morning, because I think I had someone ask me like, well, did you see that on Facebook? And I was like, no, I mean, I go to Facebook every, like maybe once a week, and I do like 3 scrolls on my cell phone. And that's all I can take, because
you're done.
Like, I was like, it's oversaturated. There's too much, like it feels like so many things coming. So then I'm like, nope, I go to Instagram where it's a lot cleaner, and I can just watch there. Yeah. And I go to TikTok so I can laugh.
Yeah. Well, and I think that a lot of people feel the same way you do. Like and I've said this a couple times before, I was like, I think we're in a social media recession. I really do. And I've worked with a couple of really larger name, not like national, but like people who have like really large followings on social media. I've helped them a little bit with getting into email marketing and stuff. And so I get to see behind the scenes into their accounts. And even they're like, their views have dropped, their follows, their engagement has dropped, like everything has dropped. And I think that we're in a point where people are just, they're done. Like they're tired of like all the social media, the being everywhere all the time, and the constant influx of information and all the things. And so if you are building your business on this idea of like, well, I need to be on social media, and you've neglected other things, I think it's going to come back to bite you at some point, because again, it's not a platform that we have a whole lot of control over. And so I think it's better to kind of be like, this is the little bit of what I do, but then the parts that I can have more control over need to take precedence over this little thing of social media. Because I do think we're seeing people, you know, our clients, our audience, they don't want to be on there as much because it is too much for a lot of people. They're like, I need to protect my space.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, Kendra, why don't you tell everyone listening or watching out there how they can connect to you, how they can work with you?
Yeah. So you can find me over at my website is girlmeansbusiness.com. And that's kind of my home base. So you can find the podcast information. You can find, I have some free resources. You can also find information on like programs in my coaching that I offer there. Or you can just send me a message and reach out and say hi and tell me you heard about me here on the podcast. And if you want to follow me over on social media, I am primarily on Instagram, and it's just at Gyrl Means Business. And like I said, I am over there. I'm mostly in my stories over there, but come say hi to me over there as well.
Awesome. All right. So we're going to move into 3 things with Kendra. I'm going to ask you 3 questions just so the audience can get to know you a little bit better. All right. So number 1, it's actually a 2-parter. How do you start and how do you end the day?
So I start my day with a glass of water. I did not used to do this, and I started doing this now because I am not a coffee drinker, but I was drinking like Dr. Pepper. That was my go-to, like caffeine. And I would find that like I would have the sugar crash. So I keep just like a, you know, water bottle next to my bed. And one of the first things I do when I get up is I try to drink like a whole bunch of water. And there's something about like, I feel like it just like refreshes my whole body. And then, so that's kind of how I start my day. And that helps me kind of get moving in the morning too. And like, cause I've got kids, I got to get lunches fixed and all the things. I end my day usually, I mean, I would love to say like, I end it with like stretching and like, you know, whatever. No, I typically end it like either half falling asleep on the couch, watching some random show on TV, or laying in bed, like scrolling on my phone, unfortunately. So I was like, I'm going to give the real answer, not the one I wish was the answer.
Exactly. Hey, it's like whatever it takes for you to like decompress and just come down from the day. And that doesn't need to be a lot of pressure. Yeah.
No, I did. And I do a lot. Like I enjoy that sort of laying on the couch and watching just some random, you know, reality show or something, whatever's on.
Yes. All right. Number 2, if you are a goal or intention setter, what is one thing you've set for yourself this year?
So one of my goals for this year is to be very intentional about the things that I do. So, you know, kind of like we talked about with a lot of things, it's like not just doing something for the sake of doing it, but really evaluating like what purpose and place does this have in my life? Whether it is, you know, someone inviting me to something and I'm like, I go out of obligation, or do I intentionally kind of go like, that's not really for me right now. Intentional with my kids, making sure I'm giving them time and, you know, energy, and not just kind of like going through my emotions through the day, and being intentional with things in my business as well. So just having that awareness of like, why am I doing the things that I'm doing? And that way I can help make better choices for the things I'm doing in my day.
Awesome. All right. And the last question is, what is a book, show, podcast, or anything that you're just loving right now?
So I would say I've kind of go through phases. Like I love to read. I really, in fact, I bought a Kindle, or I got a Kindle for Christmas. And so I've been reading on my Kindle, but I just kind of switched from like, I go through like a month or 2 of reading to a month or 2 of like listening to podcasts. So right now I'm in my podcast phase. And my go-to every single time is Armchair Expert with Dax Shepard. I don't know if you've ever listened to that one, but I love his episodes, especially the ones on Thursdays, because they interview like an expert in their field. So the one I just listened to was they interviewed Gretchen Rubin, who is like a happiness expert.
Mm-hmm.
So she's written all these books, like the Happiness Project and stuff on like what we can do. So it's almost like my therapy as I go and I listen to that podcast. And I'll do it like when I'm in the car line or if I go for a walk in the morning. So that's one. And then reading wise, I'm kind of in a like reading for pleasure phase. So I really love sort of like suspenseful mystery types. I just read one that was called, oh my gosh, I'm already drawing a blank on the name of it, but it was like maybe it was The Perfect Marriage. That's what it was, The Perfect Marriage. And it was this, really kind of like thriller, lots of twists and turns, and that's always exciting. So yeah, just kind of a mix of things that are good for my soul and also just like sort of mindless.
Yeah, you got to have it. All right, awesome. Well, before I let you go, what are 3 things you'd like the audience to take away from our conversation today?
Oh, okay. So one is, I would say, kind of what I just told you was my goal was like, I want you to try to think about like being more intentional with the things that you're doing in your day and really questioning like, why am I doing this and how is it benefiting me? I would love for them to walk away feeling like that something they've heard today connected with them. And they were like, yes, I get that. Like whether it was the identity crisis piece or, the fact that like, you don't have to be unhappy in your career to feel like you want something more or different. And then I think the third thing is I hope that they walk away feeling inspired and excited. And, that's my whole purpose in sharing my story with people is I'm like, I want people to see something in my story, in their story, and it hopefully inspires them to take action and do something in their own lives that makes them happy.
Awesome. Love that. Well, Kendra, thank you so much for joining me today. I really enjoy hearing your story, your journey. I think it is a journey that probably many people listening or watching have a similar, thing that they might be going through. And I really appreciate you focusing and also highlighting on the fact that like you can love what you do, but you may need something different to feed and nurture your growth in your soul.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you so much for having me. I really enjoyed this conversation.
Awesome. Well, stay tuned, everyone. I'll be right back. Welcome back to the Glow Up Gyrl Podcast. I'm Kyra. I want to thank Kendra again for joining the show today. Very inspiring journey. I really, really enjoyed the conversation, and I hope you all did as well. I hope you found some nuggets in her story that can help you as you continue to push forward in your entrepreneurial or professional career journeys as well. If you want to learn more about Kendra and her programs and the services she offers, you can check out our show links, the links in the show notes. If you'd like to learn more about Glow Up Gyrl, of course, you can visit us at glowupgirl.com and you can check out past podcast episodes. You can sign up to be a guest on the show, grab our social links, and so much more. Also, make sure you're checking out the Career Focus podcast episodes as well. It is where I speak from my own personal experiences in the corporate workplace. So check those out. And also, if you're listening on a platform where you can leave us a review, I would love for you to do that. If you've got questions, ideas, episode ideas, people that I should talk to, make sure you drop me a line at hello@glowupgirl.com. Well, before I go, just want to say thank you all again so much for your support and for taking time out of your busy days to pop in and listen and join me. So thank you. And until next time, stay focused, fab, and glow up. Take care, everyone.